It's time. The games are finally here, Yanni. I mean, we're recording this on a Wednesday night, so we're close to the Thursday night opener. I'm coming to you from a hotel in Kansas City, so I've got my ear to the ground for the Thursday night game, and I'm ready to jump into some football. How are you feeling about actually getting into the season here?
Man, I'm excited. So were you visiting with Travis Kelce today, or what's going on?
Totally. He and I have been hanging out a lot. T Swift is a little pissed because I've been dominating his time.
I get it.
I told her to chill, and she was like, cool, I will. So that's how that went down.
It's good to see that he's still wearing the pants in the relationship.
Yeah, exactly. That's no, he actually had a skirt on. She had the pants on. Metaphorically.
I got you.
All right. Well, hey, we are excited to get into the games this season. We'll be going deep dive into 5 featured games, making some picks and bets, and we're going to track those throughout the season. But we are going to give you a little bit on every game on the slate this season. Yanni, I know that you've been obviously putting in a lot of work. Why don't you just take a minute and share with people what you're doing this season and where they can find all the stuff to be profitable tailing you, just like last year.
Well, let's hope so, first off. So, the best place to find us is betcrushers.com, or if you're on Twitter, at the betcrushers. You can find us there. We generally, we've got different things going on. JJ's working on NASCAR throughout the year and different, wagering opportunities there. As far as NFL goes, I'll have basically 2 featured articles each week. One is essentially picks against the spread, different kind of, bets like that, totals, teasers, that kind of a thing. And then I have what I call prop corner that I've had for the last, half dozen years or so that I put out, which is basically player prop bets. So normally those will come out on Thursday, Friday. Sometimes depending upon the player prop bets, I wait to release those a little bit just because obviously not all the player props are always out. Injuries, that kind of a thing. So occasionally you'll see stuff released on Saturday, but usually Thursday or Friday, betcrushers.com or at the betcrushers on X, Twitter.
Absolutely. Go follow Yanni, bookmark the Bet Crushers. Also, first of all, if there's any problems with the streaming, I apologize for my hotel internet ahead of time. So a little bit of just take it easy on us. But go like the video, subscribe to this channel. So we'll be putting this out every Tuesday or Wednesday. So we'll have it out there on Wednesday or Thursday for you to do this. I'm probably not going to get to it every week, but I'm planning to do a show on either Thursday evening or Friday. I haven't decided yet, called Wanna Bet, where we get into a variety of different sports and just try to have some fun. I'll maybe coax Yanni into coming on and just kicking some other things around. I'm going to try to get some other guests on. So subscribe to the channel to get that, and I'll have some articles out as well. You can follow at Big Tasty Sports. We will not do that long of a commercial every time, but the reality is, especially with that prop corner has been money. So it's just good information. Like if you enjoy the NFL and enjoy betting it, you should go follow this stuff. All right, Yanni, let's get into the games, man. We're going to start out with the Friday night game here. So if you're listening to this after Friday, you could skip ahead to the next one. Green Bay Packers, I would say they're going to the Philadelphia Eagles, but they're actually going to Brazil. Both teams will be. A few of the players have not been very happy about that. Apparently they don't want to go somewhere where they have to have an armored guard to get from the hotel to the stadium. But hey, if they want to whine, I guess they're allowed to. Philadelphia -2 in this game. I forgot to write down. 49.5. I wrote it down. Over under 49.5. Yanni, this is, I think, a really fun matchup to get the season started. A standalone game on a Friday never hurts. What do you think when you look at a matchup between 2 teams that are expected to be pretty good this year?
I like the Friday night angle here. I think that's a great play by the NFL in week 1. Don't necessarily love the Brazil thing. I mean, not to side with the players, but I get it. But I think you're right. This is a really intriguing matchup. These are 2 teams that most likely are going to be fighting for the playoffs and contending in the NFC. This is one of those games that it's week 1. You say, whatever happens, happens. But this could be one of those games that has playoff implications at the end of the season, right? Tiebreakers, different things like that. So kind of an important game, even though it's week 1 here and it's out of division. I've gone back and forth on this one, and there's a couple games this week and actually a couple of them that we're going to talk about that I don't have really strong opinions on. just being honest. And this is one of them. And the reason being is I like certain aspects of both of these teams here in this game. I think they both have some things that favor them. And, when you look at that, it's kind of hard to really figure out, okay, is there an edge? Is there an angle? And then, of course, you throw in the travel, and it's hard to really understand fully what, if anything, that will do to any of the teams, right? I mean, I know they're essentially kind of in their time zones, but they're a little bit out. And of course, I think it's an 8 or 9 hour flight down there or whatever. So, it's a lot. So that's kind of my way of saying, I'm not sure. Here's what I do know about this game. I think the speed of the Green Bay Packers is going to give the Eagles some problems on defense. I do think that Philly's run defense is going to be able to kind of contain Josh Jacobs. I'm very high on Josh Jacobs this year, but not in this game. I think that this is kind of a tough matchup for him. But I do think that Jordan Love with those speedy weapons is going to be able to kind of take advantage of that Eagles secondary. And I know the Eagles did try to retool in that secondary, so I expect them to be a little bit better. I mean, they can't be much worse than they were at the end of the year in the secondary. But I still don't know that they're great. I mean, we've got rookies out there potentially. We got guys that we've got to see how good they are. So, that worries me a little bit about the Eagles. On the flip side there, I think the Eagles should be able to score too. I kind of look at that offense and I think Saquon Barkley could have a nice debut in this game. The Packers traditionally are not great at stopping the run, and I don't see why they would be great this year at doing that. So, Barkley could get off to a nice start. And obviously we know this Eagles team has weapons. We know their offensive line is good. So when you kind of put it together, it's like, what do you have? If anything, I think you have to look, and it's a crazy high number, but I think if anything, you have to look at the over here because, you just kind of start looking and saying, how are either of these teams going to stop each other? Now, I will say I have not bet that yet. But if you said you got to bet something on that game, I think that would be my favorite play. What I find really interesting is the Packers are one of the more heavily bet teams this weekend. And the spread has not hit the crucial number of 3. So, that kind of tells you where I guess the perception of this game is going. I'll be curious to hear your thoughts. I think to me, it's the over, or I think you can absolutely look at teasing the Packers to get them to, 8 or 8.5, depending upon what line you have there. Because I do think I don't see, if the Eagles win this game, which they may, I don't see them running away with it. If they win, I think it's going to be close. So, I think you could look at teasing the Packers. You could look at the over, even though I don't love that number. It's kind of high, but that's kind of where I'm at with this game. As far as the spread in that, I don't know. It's hard for me to call week one.
Before I get into my take on the game, I'm curious what you think potentially. You said you think the Eagles would be able to hold up against Josh Jacobs in the run game, and I agree with that. Any thoughts on potentially Josh Jacobs in the passing game, though? The Packers are thin in terms of the depth chart at running back right now, and if those receivers are creating space in the secondary, I wonder about Jacobs being able to leak out and catch some screen passes in the passing game.
Certainly a possibility. I mean, Jacobs has not been a huge pass catcher for most of his career, but he is capable when they throw him the ball, so I think whether it's a check down or, like you said, design screens, I think that's an option. And, I've got to assume that Green Bay has looked at that and said, hey, if we struggle running the ball, we're still going to need to find ways to get Jacobs involved. We're still going to be able to, need to find ways to get those 3 and 4 and 5 yard gains. So it could be those check down screens, that kind of a thing. I think it's possible. We'll see. They're very thin at that running back position, which is part of the reason I'm so high on Jacobs overall. I mean, I think he's going to get a lot of work this year, but I don't love this matchup for him. I think you're right, though. If he's going to do damage, it probably would be in the passing game in this game.
Yeah, these are the kind of things I should look up ahead of time, but I'm just curious what his receiving yards or reception. I mean, his receptions even 0.5 or something? I mean, maybe 1.5. That's just a prop I was curious about, given what you said about them holding up against the run and the weapons. So in terms of the game, yeah, I think it's a good game. I think it's close. There's a few factors that I'm looking at that make me lean one way. So you talked in the division previews about Green Bay having a talented defense, but maybe not the toughest defense. And so I think the Philly offensive line should have an advantage in this game. And therefore, it should be a good game for Saquon, which you already said. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what they do in terms of the distribution. But another thing that I'm paying attention to is Jalen Hurts maybe at this point in his career is going to try to dial back the running some. Obviously, they need him to stay healthy, so they may even coach him to not take off real quickly. But man, I remember going back, last year, 2 years ago, we were looking at his rushing totals, and it was just always over. He was always over. And if they're having difficulty holding up against Saquon, I think you get the option going a little bit where he can hand it off or he can run the ball. So I think Jalen Hurts could have a good game running it here, because the Green Bay secondary is going to be taken by the weapons on the Philly side of the ball. Obviously, you've got two really strong receivers there. I like Dallas Goedert in this game potentially too. That's another prop that I would potentially look at. It's not anything that I bet, but I think that people are, I also am pretty high on Jordan Love. However, we saw one really good year for him. And even I am tempted as a Packers hater to start thinking about him as one of the best quarterbacks in the league and capping the Packers according to that. He might be. And we're going to find out. And he certainly has some weapons around him. I'm going to say some things about the Packers that are a little bit of a concern to me, even though, don't get me wrong, I think they're a good team. I like their weapons. We talked about this in the division previews. I'm not sure they have a number one receiver. They have a lot of number two receivers, and maybe we'll find out that they have a number one or even two number ones. But I'm not 100% sold on the ceiling for the receiving core. It's a good receiving core, don't get me wrong. I think they're going to be able to stop the run game, which puts the pressure on Jordan Love. And I think if they can get him into pressure situations, we'll see if he makes some mistakes, and I think he might. So all of this to say, on the side, I did bet the Eagles money line at minus 118 a couple weeks ago. So I am on the Eagles side, but on the money line. If I had to bet it now, I'd still take Eagles -2. Anything under 3, I do like the Eagles side. I think the Packers maybe are a little bit just slightly overvalued. And I'm actually on the other side in terms of the total. If I had to bet it, I would take under. But my reason for that is we saw last year, the beginning of the season is sometimes a little bit slow for these offenses. And that long trip to Brazil, I think it can just tend to be harder on the timing and just syncing up for the offenses than it can be for the defenses. I'm not going to be betting the total, but I would take the under if I had to take something.
Can I make a real quick comment? And this doesn't go specifically for this game, but week one overall, because I think you bring up a really good point regarding those early week totals. And, last year, obviously, we saw unders. I think that when we look at any of these games, what we've seen for the last handful of years, really since the preseason became, essentially meaningless, is generally in the second half. That's when the second half of games, that's when offenses click. And it's because, these defenses, they're fatigued. They're not in game shape yet. So, I know one of the angles that we'll talk about in one of the other games here is those first half potentially, you can look at overs, unders. Second half, you can look at overs as a general, guideline there, because again, what we saw last year is a lot of times those first halves, we were seeing 6-0, 6-3. I mean, we were seeing a lot of those games early, but then oftentimes in the second half, those defenses, they're not used to it. Those pass rushers get winded. All of a sudden, the offenses start clicking a little bit in the second half. So I think that's something worth pointing out for week one overall.
Yep. I agree with you. I like that first half take for sure. All right. Anything else in terms of player props? Any other angles on this game that we haven't talked about, Yanni?
No, actually, if anything, I looked at the Jalen Hurts under rushing yards just because of what we saw, but I didn't bet it. I think it's too early because I think, like you said, we need to see, is Hurts going to be the old Jalen Hurts? Is he going to be dialed back? What are we going to see with that? It's Saquon, how does that impact it? So, I think that's really where I'm at. The one that I think you can look at as an over is the Saquon receiving yards. I think he was at, I want to say 23.5, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it in front of me. But I think that again, they're going to utilize him in that way, just like he was, with the Giants there. And I think he could catch some passes in this game.
Very good. All right. So what we're going to do this year for these featured games is on the spread, we're going to make a pick, and then it's either a pick, which means this is the side I'd take, but I'm not betting it, or a bet, which means I'm actually betting it. Okay. So I want to put that out there, not just, hey, I think you should bet it, but this is something I'm actually going to bet this week. So, and then we'll track our record on picks and bets. So for this game, Yanni, -2 on the Eagles. Which way are you going? Is it a pick or a bet?
It's definitely going to be just a pick. Again, I don't have strong feelings here, but I'll take the Packers with the points here. Again, I'm not betting it. I don't love it, but that if I had to, that's I think the direction I would go here.
All right, and I'm going to take Philly -2, but it's going to be a pick for me. I will say, if I hadn't already bet the money line, I'd be inclined to probably do a little something with -2, but I'm not going to track it that way because I'm not going to be taking the -2 when I'm already on the money line.
Got it.
I was going to see really quick here too if I could look up. Well, we'll get into the next game. I'll come back to it. I was just curious what Josh Jacobs' receiving props were, but let's go on to the next game, and I'll maybe look while you're telling us what's correct on Houston and Indy. So the Texans are coming to Indianapolis for week 1. Houston is -3, though. The line is interesting here because -3 is +100 is the best line, and -114 on +3. So it is shaded toward the Colts on the line there, but it is +3, -3, and that's what we'll go with. 48.5 is the total in this one. Yanni, Houston certainly has a lot of hype. I'm high on them. We talked about that. I think this is a really good team, especially a really good offense. What happens when they visit Anthony Richardson and his dynamic legs in week 1?
I think this is going to be one of the games of the week. I really do. I think that, this is going to be a close game. Obviously, division teams, I think the big thing is Indy enters this game healthy. Obviously, last year they battled injuries, of course, at the quarterback position there in particular. This is one of the most interesting games as well, because I am really, really interested to see how the Texans come out and play under pressure. And I say under pressure, I mean, it's week 1, it's a division game. But again, we talked about them having a target on their back as opposed to kind of sneaking up on people last year. Can CJ Stroud kind of avoid the sophomore slump and be one of those top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the league? I think he will probably, but we'll see. When you really look at this game here, there's a couple things that I look at. I mean, I mentioned, let's see how the Texans divvy up the targets offensively. Are they forcing the ball to Stephon Diggs as a number 1 or number 2 guy, or are they just kind of spreading it around? I think, we saw that if they try to force it to him, especially at this point in career, that's going to hinder their offense. That's going to hinder CJ Stroud. We'll have to see. I'm not going to make a prediction on that. I think part of what week 1 is kind of all about is seeing what we see with stuff like that. But I kind of look at this game. I don't think Houston's going to be able to run the ball very well. Indy's, I think, are going to have a very good run defense. I think Grover Stewart is one of the more underrated interior defensive linemen there. Obviously, they've got DeForest Buckner. I think they're solid there. But I think, that actually helps Houston, because I think it's going to force them to have to throw the football. And, good luck matching up with those 3 receivers plus Dalton Schultz. And, Joe Mixon is an underrated receiver out of the backfield. You don't think of him as a receiving back. He's a pretty capable check down guy. He can take screens, he can take check downs and work with it. So how do you stop that if you're Indy? When I look at that Indy secondary, I don't think it's good at all. I think it, at best it's below average, so that's not ideal. So I think Houston's going to move the ball pretty well here. The question is what's going to happen on Indy's side of the ball. I see a whole lot of Jonathan Taylor and a whole lot of Anthony Richardson running the football in this game. Last year, now, of course, Richardson, I think, got knocked out. Don't quote me on that. But when they played Houston, I believe he got knocked out in that game, at least for a while. That wasn't the game that knocked him out for the season, I don't believe. But he was running very efficiently in that game. And, I think unlike Jalen Hurts, even though, of course, they want him to be safe, his way to victory is running the football. I mean, he doesn't have the luxury of some of these quarterbacks that can throw and run. We haven't seen his ability to throw just yet. Maybe we will. I don't know. We'll see as he develops as a player, but he's going to have to run. So I think that's going to be where we look at here is Houston figured out, do they have the dogs on defense to kind of stop that offense when you got Jonathan Taylor running right, Anthony Richardson running left, you're doing play action, all that kind of stuff. So again, I think this is going to be a really fun game. Here's what I like in this game. It kind of goes back to what I said week 1. The total's high in this game, and I could see it getting there. I could absolutely see it getting there. But I like the first half under in this game. I think that, we're going to see a little bit of both of these teams kind of figuring it out a little bit in the first half, meaning, are the Colts going to kind of hand the ball off a little bit there? Are the Texans going to try to work Mixon in, work Diggs in, that kind of a thing? Sure, this is one of those games where if you're going to play an under, you have to live with the fact that you could get embarrassed. I mean, this game could end up 38-35 easily. But I don't think it will. We'll see. And what I really don't think is I don't think they're going to come out guns a-blazing. I think that if it gets that way, again, it ends up that way in the second half when the defenses are tired, when the offenses start clicking. I think the first half under is very much in play here. The other thing I really like in this game is I do like Anthony Richardson's rushing yards total. And it's high. I want to say it's, I'd have to look, it's either 38.5 or 43.5, if I'm not mistaken, give or take there. But I mean, I think he had, I don't remember what the number is, and I apologize, I'm not well prepared on this, but he crushed that in the first half last year. So
43.5.
43.5.
Yep. Right now. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought. 43.5. So, but I think he easily gets to 50 yards in this game. I mean, I think this is the type of game, Houston, I think they're going to be able to rush the passer. They've got good corners, good secondary. He's going to have to tuck and run. So unless this team gets up big early, which I don't think that's going to happen, I think that his rushing total is very much in play. So that's kind of the two angles I'm looking at here. The first half under, and Anthony Richardson rushing yards.
I'll just throw this out. If you like Anthony Richardson rushing yards, which I agree that that's one of their primary offensive weapons, this is just DraftKings, but 50 or more is plus 130, 60 or more is plus 225, 70 or more is plus 390. So you climb up pretty quick once you get past that 50 mark.
60 plus is very doable, I think, for him in this game.
Yeah, and that's a nice line. That's nice plus money on that.
For sure.
I don't mind, if you have books like that, shop it around, but a little bit of a ladder there, maybe even, you take the over, but then put a little bit less on some of those bigger plus money lines.
Yep.
So, well, I'm one of those people who might end up looking like a sucker because I bet the under for the game here at 49 already. So I got an okay line on it. I agree with you. It could definitely be a game in the 60s, and I don't deny that. For me, it's that early season stuff that you talked about. Hearing you talk, if there's not a lot of points in the first half, I may look for a middle after the first half and play whatever the over is at halftime, because these offenses definitely can light it up. As I think about this game, I will just say I think at least half the time this line is off. I personally think Houston wins by a touchdown or more. Now, I can see scenarios where they don't, but it goes to some of the things that you said, Yanni. I understand it's the first game. I understand CJ Stroud could take a step back. They've got to get used to the receivers that are in the room now, all this stuff. And I agree that they won't be able to run the ball much, which I'm with you. Okay. I mean, whatever. If CJ Stroud is decent, this secondary is not good. And the problem for the Colts, which again, we talked about on the division preview, is on the defensive line. What they're weakest at is rushing the passer off the edge. I mean, if you give CJ Stroud time to stand back there with these weapons, I just think they're in trouble. I don't know how they stop Houston a lot. And so in my mind, the part of the reason I bet the under is I envision Houston getting up early here. And then Anthony Richardson feels like, or the Colts feel like they have to try to get him throwing the ball more than they want to. I think he's very mistake prone. I think he's inaccurate. So I like his over half an interception. Okay. The line I just looked at is minus 125. Maybe there's something better. I'd love to get that at even money, but I think there's going to definitely be opportunities for Houston to pick him off in this game unless Indy can control the pace and run the ball a lot and only have to throw where it's comfortable for Anthony Richardson. And then I think in the second half, if it's spread out a little bit, Houston probably does start trying to just kill the clock some. I see your point, and I can see Indianapolis scoring here if they can get Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson going, but I don't believe in this Colts passing game. That's what it comes down to for me. So if the Colts win or cover the spread, I think it's a lower scoring game, actually, and then I think the under hits. If the over hits, to me, it's Houston winning by a touchdown plus, and I think that they even potentially blow them out because I don't think the Colts are built to catch up. So that's where I'm at in this one. And I'm admittedly pretty high on Houston. If they didn't have such a tough schedule, I would really like them to be in play even for the number 1 seed. I may end up looking like an idiot for being way too high on them, but that's where I'm at coming into the season.
No, I think you bring up some good points there. And Houston was very good against the run last year. Whether or not they can continue that, we'll see. But if they can't get Jonathan Taylor going, it could be a long day. And the only reason I didn't mention betting Houston against the spread, because I'm with you, I think they're the right side here, is I put this in an article that I'm writing that I'll be putting out tomorrow or this week. This is the squarest of square bets, right? You're taking taking a road favorite at minus 2.5 or whatever in a division game. And actually, Houston right now, the most tickets are in on Houston than any team for week 1. So everybody's seeing that. So, but you know what? But here's the thing, though. We talk about it all the time. The public wins too, right? Public wins sometimes. So I think when you look at it, I mean, this is kind of the way that I look at it here. I think, to your point, Houston's a good team. I do think CJ Stroud is going to, kind of firmly establish himself as a true, legitimate top 3 or 4 quarterback in this league. And with that, it's like, think of it. You wouldn't have hesitated to take Tom Brady minus 2.5 against, the Jets or the Dolphins or, the Bills or whatever during that, right? Like, you would have done that. And I think that's kind of the way we have to look at this Houston team as they play an Indy team that, I think you and I are kind of both like, I don't know how good this team's going to be at the end of the day. So, yeah, I mean, it's very possible that they could run them out of the gym in this game. I mean, it's not crazy to think that would happen. Again, do I like it when 87% of the bets are on the Texans? Not necessarily. But again, the public wins sometimes. And, this could be one of those games where it's like, don't overcomplicate it. Take the good team versus the not good team.
Yeah, that's where I'm at for now. So, all right, anything in terms of any player props or other bets that you're looking at on this game?
No, just what I mentioned there. I think Anthony Richardson, rushing yards is a good.
Yeah, I like that. I like that ladder. That's a compelling one for sure.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're going to grade this one at plus or minus 3 because that's the line that I saw today. Unless, do you see a 2.5 out there right now?
I did when I wrote the article, it was 2.5 at like minus 115. I have not.
Okay. Well, this is at plus 100. So it's probably living kind of in between there right now. Let's go ahead. Hold on. I'm going to just look it up here really quick.
Yeah, I was going to say we can do minus 3. I'll pull it up on Bovada right now just to see where we're at today.
So there's minus 2.5 at minus 120.
Okay.
It looks like the 3 is the more common line. So.
Yeah, I see it at 3 on Bovada.
Yeah. All right, we'll go with 3. So what you got here, Yanni, at that key number of 3?
Well, so at the key number of 3, I'm still going to take Houston here because I think you and I are probably aligned on that overall there. I probably would, not to be a girl here, but actually I shouldn't say that. Not to be weak here, but not to be weak.
Female picker, not to be named.
Maybe you have to edit that out. But I don't think I'm actually going to bet this. I do have the first half under actually bet, and I probably would bet the Richardson prop. But I'll just do this as a pick, and I'll take Houston minus 3.
Hey, and this is good. We can give people the things we're actually betting, even if we're not on the spread. So, yeah, I'm definitely in on Houston minus 3. Again, I bet Houston money line at, I think, minus 120 a couple weeks ago. So this is another one. And I'm sorry to be a whatever you want to call me. Like, I'm not going to bet it at minus 3 at this point either. So it's just going to be a pick for me as well. But that's the side I'm on. And I took the under as well. So, although mine's full game, not first half. So, all right, moving on to game number 3. This is the barn burner of the week that we're breaking down here, Yanni. We got the Raiders going to the Chargers. Chargers are minus 3 right now, and the total is sitting at 40.5, one of the lower games of the week when it comes to the total. What do you think about Las Vegas and Los Angeles locking up?
I like this game a lot, actually.
All right.
Normally these AFC West games are but I mean, you got Jim Harbaugh, obviously, and I think I'm a little higher than most on the Raiders going into this season, so I'll be curious to see if maybe Hopefully they'll prove me right here with a fast start. We'll see. As far as the total goes, because you mentioned it, it is a low total. I would go over on this. And again, early overs, I get it. We saw it last year, but that's a really low total. And I think that both of these teams are going to be able to score a little bit here. You don't need much. I mean, you can kind of stumble your way to an over when it's that low. So, I do like that. But in this game, I think the Chargers, it's going to take them some time. I mentioned that in our division previews there. I think they're headed in the right direction potentially with Jim Harbaugh there, but I don't know that you just come out and all of a sudden you're this like different team. Add in the fact that Herbert basically missed the preseason, right? He had his plantar fasciitis or whatever, injury he was dealing with there. Is he going to be 100% healthy? He hasn't had a lot of time to work with his receivers. He doesn't have old reliable Keenan Allen there. It's a different cast, obviously. We'll see. I like Josh Palmer. I think he's a quality player. I was high on Ladd McConkey coming out of the draft there. So, I mean, it's not that they couldn't potentially have weapons, but I also don't know that anyone would look at this and say, oh man, this team's just going to light it up. Definitely don't love their running game. I think that we're going to see that Gus Edwards was kind of a product of that Baltimore system and not necessarily a great running back. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins coming off back-to-back major injuries. I don't know that we can count on him to be an explosive running back. We'll see. So I don't know that the Chargers are going to be great offensively. Can they do enough with Justin Herbert? Probably. They have a decent offensive line. But last year, the Raiders wrecked that Chargers team. I mean, they absolutely pummeled them. Max Crosby was a freaking madman in those games there. So you add Christian Wilkins in there, and I think that this Raiders defense could give them problems. I don't see the same on the Chargers side there. I think this Raiders offense is going to be able to move the football. Now, there's some question on the health of Devontae Adams. Of course, he missed the preseason. But Gardner Minshew is one of those guys that usually comes out of the gate, pretty quick. He's done that everywhere he's been. It's like he comes in and makes a splash, and then sometimes it kind of, I'm going to say, falls back to reality a little bit. But I expect him to come out of the gate firing here. I like their weapons. I think a name you're going to hear, by the way, we didn't talk about this and we won't, but if you do DFS, a cheap option this week is Trey Tucker. He's the third receiver for the Raiders, especially if Adams is banged up. He's going to get some looks. He and Minshew were locked in during the preseason. I mean, Tucker looked really good. So I like this offense. I think that, it's funny. I listen to all these, different podcasts and I read these articles and nobody's high on Zamir White. And I understand. I mean, he's not like your prototypical guy, but he looked good in the preseason. I think he's going to have a good season. And I think you can run on this Chargers defense. You've been able to for the last few years. So I think the Raiders are going to move the ball pretty well. To me, we know that the Chargers have no home field advantage, not only because there's no crowd there. I mean, we will see more Raiders fans at this game than we will Charger fans. But I think that, to me, this line is way off. I think the Raiders win this game. And to be honest, like, it's a division game. So I'm not saying that they're going to run away with it. I mean, it's hard to do in a division game. The Chargers do have some talented pieces. They've got some all-pro type players on their roster. So I don't think it's going to be anything where the Raiders come out and win this game, 35-10. But I do think that they win this game. And I think they win by probably a touchdown, in my opinion. So I think for me, we'll see. But this could be the start of the Raiders being, a decent team in the AFC. And I think it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment for the Chargers as they go through this season. So I like the Raiders here. I think they get this job done. I think they end up winning this game by a touchdown.
All right. I like the strong take. You feel more strongly about this game than I do. So that's a good thing. I'll spend a little less time probably. For me, I don't like the Chargers very much this year. Like you said about them being headed in a good direction, I can buy that. And I think in another year or two, they could be good. And I think Justin Herbert is pretty good. But, man, I think this team is going to try to run the ball a lot, and they're not going to have much margin for error. And, yes, Justin Herbert will be able to throw the ball a little bit, but I just think it's going to be a lot of boring close games because their schedule is easy. So I don't know that they get blown out a lot, but I don't think they really blow other teams out much either this year. The thing I wonder with Gardner Minshew coming out slinging the ball is an Antonio Pierce-led team going to let him do that? I think Antonio Pierce is terrified of turning the ball over and making mistakes. And so I wonder how much he's going to limit Gardner Minshew in terms of the game plan and try to keep the ball safe by running the ball. I think both these teams try to run it a lot, which is why Took the under. I got it at 42.5. It's at 40.5 now. I honestly still don't hate it. I think if I hadn't bet it, I would bet it at 40.5. I think this game ends up being something like 16-13. I think both teams will run the ball a lot. They'll have a little bit of success, but when you run the ball a lot, you have to sustain long drives. And in the NFL, it's really hard to sustain long drives. It just takes one bad pass, one mistake, one penalty, which at least in the past, the Raiders have been known for racking up some penalties. I do think a point you made that I agree with that I hadn't thought about is like the Chargers, you have been able to run on them in the past. And that's a good call out. If the Raiders can get the run game going and really establish it, that's a really good thing. The weapons are definitely better for the Raiders. The quarterback is better for the Chargers, but I don't know how much Harbaugh is going to let him do. And I think the defenses on both sides are kind of okay. I'm not in love with either defense. They're not terrible. So for me, I'm on the Raiders side, but the main reason I am is because I get the +3. I think this is a field goal game one way or another in a low scoring game is the way I'm looking at it. So I could be talked into probably Zamir White over here because I do think they're going to try to run the ball, and I think it's only 54 yards, so it's not super high. Any other props or anything for you on this game that you're looking at?
No, I looked at Zamir White as well. I think that's, certainly a potential option, but I don't love it there. I don't there on the prop side. No, I think there's too much value in the Raiders on this game. I mean, I think for me, you could look at playing the Raiders money line in this game because I think at best this is a coin flip, right? Like
that's how I look at it.
Yeah. So or at worst, I guess I should say it's a coin flip. So Raiders money line to me definitely makes sense here. But obviously, if you can get the +3 here, like you said, protecting against a field goal here. But I just like the Raiders a lot in this game. I mean, this is a bet that I'm fairly strong on.
Okay, so we'll go there. Is this Raiders +3 is a bet for you?
Yep,
all
absolutely.
Right. Good for you, man. I still have no bets. This is just going to be a pick for me. I feel like I've had a total on every game that I've actually bet, but this is another one. Hey, after our conversation, I'm actually going to think about the Raiders +3 though, because I do agree with you that this is a coin flip kind of game. And so money line at plus money, or you get +3 on whichever side, that's more valuable to me. So I like it. All right. I'm excited for this next game, man. Two teams that I'm really interested to see. We got the Titans going to Chicago. Chicago is still a 4-point favorite. It was 4.5, so it's come down just that half point, not necessarily a key number. 44.5 is the total here after the Bears lit it up in the preseason, scored about that much by themselves. Apparently, they think the regular season is different than the preseason or something, Yanni. Obviously, people are excited about the Bears' weapons, excited to see Caleb Williams. Tennessee has a lot of talent too. How do you think this one goes down?
This is I think we said this a while ago. This is a sneaky good week 1 game that you don't really, you didn't really look at, but not just because we get to see the debut of Caleb Williams, but these are two teams that have a lot of potential. Now, will either of them reach that potential? Time will tell on that. But I think this could be a really fun game to watch here. So Caleb Williams, let's see. This Titans defense to me is going to be very good, like top 10, potentially maybe even a little bit better if they can get a pass rush. I mean, that's my one concern with their defense here. But if they can get a pass rush, I think this defense could be really good. So for Caleb Williams to come out, it's like, yeah, we know he's got weapons. He's got Keenan Allen now to go with DJ Moore, and they drafted Rome Odunze. So he's got the weapons there, but I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball very well against this Tennessee defense. And if they can't, that puts it all in Caleb Williams. I don't know if that's where you want a rookie to be, right? With all that pressure in his home debut. Do I think the Bears can win this game? I do, but two things have to happen to me. Number one, Caleb Williams has to take care of the football. And two, they're going to have to figure out how to at least run the ball a little bit here. I said I didn't think they're going to be able to run well, and I don't. They got to run a little bit here. So, with all that being said, let's flip to the Tennessee side here. I think this Tennessee offense is potentially sneaky good. Now, DeAndre Hopkins comes into this game a little bit questionable. Don't know how effective he's going to be. That can certainly impact them. I mean, they do have other weapons. I think Tyler Boyd is a guy that could have a big game in this game. But, we'll see if they can run the ball. This Bears defense was kind of sneaky good in the second half of last season when they got healthy. So when I kind of look at this all together, to me on Tennessee, it comes down to Will Levis. Levis has a lot of upside. I think people are like, hey, this guy could be really good. He might. He also could be really, really not good. We'll have to kind of wait and see now that he kind of has a full offseason, a full year. They've got him some help. I do think this Titans offensive line is going to be substantially better than it was. I mean, it can't be worse. They were basically probably the worst, if not, one of the worst last year. This year, I think they could potentially be, I think I had them ranked like 19th or 20th in the, in my rankings preseason. So I think they're going to be substantially better there, which obviously is going to give Levis a chance to be better. I don't know, when you have a new coach coming in like you do in Tennessee, sometimes it's hard to figure out, but here's kind of where I land on this game overall. Do I think the Bears win? I do. I think they find a way. And if you look, the Bears have actually been really good at home the last 2 seasons. Like at home, they've been pretty solid. I do think they win. Do I think that number's too high? I do. I think this should be more like -2.5 or 3. So getting that key number, if you're betting this game, I think you have to take Tennessee here. I think that the Bears win this in a close one type game. I do think the Bears probably find a way to win if Caleb Williams doesn't turn the ball over. But do I think they're going to cover? But more than that, I love the under in this game. I think that, the only way to me the under doesn't get home is if you got guys like Williams and Levis that try to do too much and they turn the ball over, right? You get those pick sixes, those fumbles in your own zone, short fields, that kind of a thing. If that doesn't happen, I think these teams both struggle to score a little bit in this game. I think these are 2 underrated defenses and probably 2 offenses that are glazed because, you've got these flashy, players and quarterbacks in that. So I love the under in this game. As far as props go, because I know you're going to ask, I like the Caleb Williams rushing prop in this one. What do we think is going to happen, right? He knows he's going to be on ESPN and all these, NFL and all that. He's going to want to not throw interceptions and he's going to want to look flashy. So what's the best way to do that as a young quarterback? Tuck the ball under and try to make some people miss. His rushing total, and I don't know throughout the year that he'll be a guy that goes over his rushing total, but I feel like in a game like this, he's going to be trying to throw against guys like L'Jarius Sneed and Chidobe Awuzie. Man, if it's not open, what's he going to do? He's going to tuck and run. So I like his rushing total over here. I love the under in this game, and I think the Titans are the side. That's kind of where I'm at on this game.
Yeah, 18.5 is what I see for his rushing total, which I agree, man. That seems really good. Yanni, I have to say, number one, I'm so excited that we're disagreeing on some things. We went through all those division previews, and it was like every single thing was like, yep, me too. So I actually, if anything, I like the over here, though I like the angle of the second half over, because I agree. I mean, these are young offenses, kind of unknown, new coach in Tennessee, and so I don't think everything's going to click early. But I do think that both of these teams potentially are going to be able to score some. I actually feel a little bit better about Tennessee's defense than I do about Chicago's. The question I have on the Chicago side is if they're going to be able to get enough pressure to force Will Levis into turnovers. And granted, we haven't seen enough from Will Levis to know what he is, other than a guy who likes mayo. We know that for sure. I don't know if you've seen his mayo commercial. It's pretty, it's something. That's all I got to say about it. But so I'm high on Chicago for this year. I picked them. Well, I didn't pick them. I bet them at plus 350 to win the division, mostly because their schedule's super easy. But I think there's definitely upside on this team. My questions for them are a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. We talked about how it was a little bit rough early in the season, but they had some really key injuries. They bring in Sweat and get healthy, and then they're good against a relatively soft schedule the second half of the season. So I'm curious to see what that defense looks like. I think the offense is going to end up being really good. But to your point, do they come out blazing right out of the gates? Man, I think if Tennessee's so the last division we broke down, was it the last division we broke down, the AFC South? Man, the more I thought about the Titans, the more I just thought, yes, there are big question marks here. Because how good can the offensive line be? Can they be okay? They're not going to be great. And is Will Levis good? Obviously a big question. But, man, I really like their weapons. The more I thought about that, the more I thought not only do I like their weapons, I like the depth they have at wide receiver, which a lot of teams don't. So I don't think they're susceptible to one guy having an off game. I like what I see on the defensive side of the ball overall. Not that there are zero holes, but I think, man, this is a solid defense. So all that to say, this is a game where I think turnovers could potentially play a big part in it, and that makes it very volatile. And you said that too. It's hard to predict turnovers. If we could, we'd all be rich because they have such a big impact on the game. What I'm going to go with is I think both teams turn the ball over once or twice, but maybe it kind of evens out. And if that's the case, man, I'm with you. You said this should be 2.5 or 3. I think, 1.5 to 2.5 at the most to me is where this should be lined. So I like Tennessee +4 here. Like I said, I like a second half under potentially. I'm really excited to watch this game. But I think it's probably a close one. I mean, I think at the end of the day, these teams are probably for this season not really far away from each other talent-wise.
Agreed.
So, all right, well, let's go with pick or bet here, and I think we know which side we've got. But
yeah, I'll put it out there as an actual bet there with Tennessee. I mean, I feel strongly enough that getting over that key number of 3 is makes it worth a bet.
Yep, I was going to say right after we're done with the show, I'm going to go in as long as I can get the +4. I'm going to bet this as well. I think that's a great number to be on the other side of 3, and not even 3.5. You get all the way to 4. That's nice. So. All right, last game we're going to go into some depth on here is the Aaron Rodgers-led New York Jets on Monday night going to San Francisco, who now have Trent Williams back in the fold. Brandon Ayuk has signed. All these things were question marks just less than a week ago, but it kind of has settled in for the 49ers here over the last few days. The Jets were all the way down to or the Niners to -3.5. Now it's back out to -4.5. And the total here is at 43.5, as we do have 2 traditionally good defenses going at it in one of these early games of the season. Yanni, this should be a really fun Monday night game. I mean, what more could you ask for than a matchup like this in week 1? What do you think with a line that's passed for here with 2 teams who are supposed to be good?
To me, it comes down to this. We know what the San Francisco 49ers team is, right? I mean, there's not a lot of mystery there. We don't know exactly what the Jets team is because we still have not seen them with Aaron Rodgers, 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. So that's kind of, you're able to handicap one team pretty well. The other one's a little bit more of a mystery. Now, with that being said, I think San Francisco is clearly a better team than the Jets, but I do think the Jets are a good football team. If Aaron Rodgers can give them anything, which I think he can, I don't think he would be back in the mix if he didn't feel like he could give them something. Now, there's a lot of talk about whatever friction in the Jets, and who knows? I mean, we'll see. It kind of we talked about it during our preview. It was like cursed franchises, right? Like the Jets are this like cursed franchise. So it's like somehow things just seem to implode. And, I said during that, I said, you know what, though, as much as I hate to say it as a Bills fan, I think this is the year that they're able to kind of put it together. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they get cursed and whatever happens again and their team's terrible again. But, when I look at this game, it's kind of like Tennessee and Chicago in the sense that I think if you're going to bet this game, you bet the number. And I think you go with the Jets here because I think that their defense is good enough to at least slow down that Niners offense. I mean, you mentioned Trent Williams just coming back into the mix there. Ayuk coming back into the mix. I do think McCaffrey will have a nice game. I mean, the Jets are not great against the run, but where the Jets could have success is if they can turn Brock Purdy over. Purdy has been a very steady quarterback since he's been the starter for San Francisco. But we did see last year when he had that big spotlight game, what did he do? He threw 3 or 4 picks, right? In that game against the Ravens on Monday night, I believe. And, I wonder if this could be one of those things where it's like, oh, he's got a hostile defense there. Could this be a situation where maybe the Niners aren't quite in sync yet? And maybe that offense can't get going just yet. I have no concerns about the Niners. If they lost this game, I still wouldn't have concerns about them. But I don't know if this is a great spot for them. We'll see. I think that Rodgers coming in, I feel like if he can play at all, he's going to keep this game close. That's my opinion here. So do I think the Jets are going to come out blazing? I don't know. Because again, first real live game action with, some of his new receivers and that. But I just think when I look at this here, these teams are not that far apart. The Niners are better. But I don't know that they're tremendously better. They're a little bit better in my opinion here. So when I look at that point total in an early season game, I'll take the points there. Again, I don't love it because I think the Niners are potentially the best team in the league, or one of, top 2 or 3 as they've been the last few years. But I just think that number, much like with Tennessee, it's like you can't pass that number up. I just feel like it's going to be a close game as long as Rodgers doesn't go out on the first series like we saw a year ago. And by the way, the Jets won that game. So, for whatever that's worth. But yeah.
Yeah, man, super similar here. I bet the Jets at +5.5 earlier, but +4.5, fine with me. 3.5, I was starting to get a little iffy. Though, honestly, even on the other side of 3, I feel okay. Trent Williams just coming back is big for them, but you wonder a little bit. I mean, he just came back yesterday. So is he going to be in game shape? Is he even going to be able to play the whole game? Is he going to be his dominant all-pro self? And if he's not, that offensive line just isn't very good. And it makes a huge difference in what they're able to accomplish. So who I have no idea what he's been doing. I have no idea what level he's going to play at. But there's enough concern for me there with the upheaval. And granted, they were together last season, so it's not like they're getting used to new parts. But I'm going to go ahead and say that the Niners don't come out here and put out their best performance of the year. And the Jets, to me, are... Man, you bring it up with the curse. It seems like every year something goes wrong, but if not, I'm just on the same page as you. This is a solid offense. It's a good offensive line. We think a good quarterback, a couple good receiving options. I think Mike Williams is intriguing, playing with Aaron Rodgers, especially in the red zone. A running back who's expected to be one of the top 2 or 3 running backs in the league. A defense that we know is going to be in the top 5 at least, probably better than that, though, unless there's some defensive regression. So, man, on paper, this just is not a 4.5 point spread to me. So for me, this is a bet, and I'll grade myself at 4.5, not 5.5. To me, this is a bet at 4.5 even. How about for you?
I'm just going to go with a pick, and I'll pick the Jets at that number. Again, I don't ever want to make a habit against betting against the San Francisco team. So If I don't have to bet this, I'm not going to, even though I do think the Jets are the right side here. One other thing, too, that I do think is fair pointing out is you can say what you want about in-game management from Kyle Shanahan. There have been obviously numerous occasions of questionable play calling, but he's had all offseason to prepare here. And I'm sorry, but this San Francisco coaching staff is miles ahead of this Jets coaching staff. And when you have that extra prep time, that would concern me a little bit as well. That's kind of the other reason why I would pick the Jets here, but not actually bet them.
That's honestly a great point. We haven't talked about coaching much, and you don't necessarily want to overplay it, but the better coach does often win. So that's a good point as well. A bet that I would be interested in here, and I haven't had I think there was one other I talked about betting live. I could see the Niners coming out and scoring early here. And if they do, I would like if you can get past the 7 live on the Jets. That's something that I would be interested in adding as well.
Yeah, again, should probably end up being a close game. So certainly if you're getting over that touchdown number, I mean, you'd want to look at that.
Yep. All right. Quick recap on that. So both of us, or Yanni's on Green Bay +2. I'm Philly -2, a pick for both of us. Houston -3, a pick for both of us. The Raiders +3, a pick for me, a bet for Yanni. Both of us betting Tennessee +4. And then both of us on the Jets +4.5. It's a pick for Yanni. It's a bet for me. If you have not yet and you're still watching, like the video, subscribe. We are going to end here by running through all of the other games and just giving a quick take, any bets you like, 1 or 2 key points on what you think makes the difference in these games. We'll start out with the game that happens tomorrow night, or by the time this is out, tonight. Baltimore going to Kansas City. Kansas City is -3, over under 46.5.
Not a lot of thoughts on this game. Excited to watch it, obviously, to kick off the season, and obviously two potentially good teams, two good quarterbacks, that kind of a thing. I like the under in this game. And actually it's actually gone up. So I think you could bet the under now at 46 and a half. I think I bet it at 46. I think that these teams, again, the Chiefs defense, very underrated early in the season, that kind of a thing. So I like the under in this game. I don't know who wins the game. I think if you asked me, I think I would say the Chiefs, but I also think I look at the Ravens points. I'm like, I don't know. So, no strong feeling there. As far as player props, I do like a couple overs in this game. I like Derrick Henry's rushing yards at 64 and a half. I think they're going to feature him a little bit in his career. He's played the Chiefs 3 times. He's gone over 100 yards all 3 times. So had some success against them. Yeah, I think that Spagnuolo, I think they're going to be okay with allowing 3 and 4 yard runs from Henry during this game. I think they'll be okay with that. So, kind of one of those things where if he gets 17, 18 carries, he's going to get over that number.
I like it.
Yeah. And then, on the other side, Rashee Rice, I think that as long as Hollywood Brown is out, I don't know how aggressively they're going to work the ball to Kelsey here. So I think that Rashee Rice is going to kind of be the beneficiary there. You can get his catches at over 5.5. I think that, when you look at the second half of the season, he was pulling in 6+ catches, pretty routinely. So I think those are a couple player props you can look at in that game.
I like Kansas City -3 here. I think the Ravens defense takes a step back this year with Mike McDonald gone. That the more I've sat with it too, I think that could end up being kind of a big deal with regression on so I like Kansas City -3. I agree with you that I think this is probably a low-ish scoring game, though I would say potentially in the 24 or 27-20. So I don't love the under, but I think the under is there for sure. And then the number might be a little too high for me, but I actually like both of the running backs in this game. I think both of these teams might be able to run the ball. So Henry and Pacheco both interested in the over. I haven't decided on either one yet, but I'd look at both of those. So. All right, let's go on to Pittsburgh at Atlanta. Atlanta's -3, and the over-under here is 42.
So I like Atlanta in this game, but so does the rest of the world. And I don't like, unlike in that Houston game, I don't have enough confidence yet in Atlanta. I want to see what we get from Kirk Cousins. I want to see what we see as far as a new scheme, that kind of a thing. And also, you're generally not good to bet against Mike Tomlin as an underdog. I mean, he's pretty good in those situations. But I just think I don't think we're going to see a lot from that Steelers offense. I think that Falcons defense is going to be decent enough to kind of keep them contained. So to me, it's like, again, I almost feel like the Falcons could stumble to a cover here, but I don't love it enough, especially with all the hype that the Falcons are getting coming in here. I want to wait and see a little bit, but if you said you got to bet it, I would take the Falcons.
I would too, but I'm with you. I'm staying off this game on a side. I do like the Falcons, but really I like the Steelers defense and I hate the Steelers offense.
Right.
So I wrote down to me, this is like a 16-10 game that I think the Falcons win, but I like the under here. I don't think there's a lot of points. I like Najee Harris in this game. I just think Najee Harris is the kind of back that Arthur Smith likes. And I know Jaylen Warren is more dynamic. I don't hate him. Honestly, I don't mind props for both of these running backs in this game. But I don't mind Najee over 51.5. At least that's what I had seen. Anytime touchdown, +170. Like I said, I like the under here. I think this could be kind of an ugly game.
Najee Harris was my favorite prop bet of the week because I actually thought Jaylen Warren was either going to be out or limited. When he came back full practice, I kind of backed off a little bit because of the uncertainty. But I'm with you. I think this is the type of game where they give him 15 to 20 carries if they can. And at that point, you go 3 yards to carry and you're getting to that prop number. So
I think it's a lot of running. So I'm with you on that. All right, my Minnesota Vikings visit the tenacious New York Giants. Minnesota -1.5 now, and the over-under is set at 41. What are your thoughts on this one, Yanni?
I have zero thoughts, and obviously I'll be interested to hear yours, regarding the Vikings. I mean, here's where I'm at. Initially, I was like, yeah, I feel like the Vikings will get this done. That was kind of my initial thought, but then I started thinking, like, why is Sam Darnold favored? Like, what have we done to earn that? Like, that's kind of where my mind went, right?
Oh, totally. And it's so fair.
Well, and I think too, people are so down on the Giants, and understandably. I mean, I'm not expecting the Giants to be a great team, but I think that, maybe it's a little bit of an overreaction. I mean, unlike like we do have to remember, they had a ton of injuries last year. That offensive line was decimated. I mean, so, how do you really grade them? Do I think Daniel Jones is good? No. Do I like what they have overall? Not really. But I kind of looked at that and I'm like, So anyways, bottom line is I want to see what we get. The biggest thing I want to see in this game really is how does that Vikings offense look with Sam Darnold? And, obviously we need a week or two to evaluate that. We keep, right now we're just guessing. We know they have weapons. We know he has arguably the best receiver in the league there. But can he take advantage of that like Kirk Cousins could? I mentioned to you, I think Viking fans are going to long for the days of Kirk Cousins. I really do. And maybe, Darnold will come out and be good. And for your sake, I hope he does. But I need to see it before I do anything. That being said, I also don't really want to bet on this Giants team until I see a little bit from them either. If you said you have to bet this game, I would take the Giants, but there is no way I am betting this game.
Well, first of all, it's not for my sake because I want the Vikings to get the number 1 pick in the draft. So they need to be losing some games. I am totally on board with you. I do not believe in Sam Darnold. He's been bad everywhere he's been. And yes, he has Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones and some weapons here, but I don't care. I think he's a bad quarterback. Now, I think that they'll be able to game plan a little bit to maximize what he's able to offer. But in the end, he's going to be Sam Darnold. That said, I bet Minnesota at -109 again a couple weeks ago. It's -120. If I was going to bet this, I would take the money line. You're right. I'm probably overreacting to the Giants, but here's the thing with the Giants. I think the Giants defense is not good except for the defensive line, and Minnesota's offensive line is pretty good. So I think they're going to be able to hold up okay. The secondary is not good, and so I think that this is going to be a game. My opinion, we come out of this game and are like, oh, maybe Sam Darnold is good. And then next week, bet against the Vikings because he's not going to be good. But I think this Giants team is going to make him look good. And I don't think Daniel Jones is good. I still don't think this Giants offensive line is great. And Minnesota's defense is going to be okay. They're going to cause a lot of chaos. I think Daniel Jones throws an interception in this game, most likely. So I like Minnesota to win. I like them to actually win by maybe a touchdown. I think this is like the best spot of the year for them. You probably won't hear me pick them again after this. The other thing I'll say is I think some props are interesting here. Aaron Jones receptions were at 3.5. I kind of like the over there. Daniel Jones, at least when I looked it up before, -105 to throw an interception. I don't mind that line at all. It's hard for me to say this. I think maybe Sam Darnold's passing yards over because I think that they're going to be able to throw the ball here. So it's 230.5. Again, I think this is going to be one game where he's going to play pretty well, and then we'll get way too excited, and it won't pay off. So, yeah, I'm on the Vikings here. I also think that if I had to play it, I would play an over here because I do think the Vikings are going to be able to score on this defense, and then I think the Giants, probably can come back and score a couple touchdowns in the second half, and the total is low. So that's where I'm at on that one. Okay. Maybe tail between my legs and the black hat back next week when they get beat by 20 by the Giants. That would be very sad, but good for my draft outlook.
Yeah, there you go. Win-win.
Right. Yeah. Jacksonville goes to Miami. Miami -3 and a total of 48.5. Now it's come down a point.
Yeah, this should be a fun game, actually. I think this is going to be a game where we do see some offense. This will be one of the maybe few games in week 1 where we see some offense, mainly because I don't know about the defenses on these two teams, particularly the Jags there. I think they're, the bet for me is Miami Dolphins team total, but I actually like it even more in the first half. So, last year we kind of rode that Miami Dolphins team total for a while and it worked. Towards the end of the year, what we found is they were scoring well in the first half and then kind of slowing down in the second half. Don't know if that was scheme, don't know what it was. But, I kind of look at that and I'm like, this team's going to come out. They're going to have a game plan. Tua's going to get the ball to the receivers. They're probably going to be able to run to some extent here. First half, Miami Dolphins team total, maybe full game team total. I think those are both in play. As far as the game itself, I do like the Dolphins to cover here. I think it'll be a close game. I think it could be one of those ones where the Jags kind of hang around and, they do enough offensively. But we saw last year, Dolphins at home, Dolphins against teams that weren't quote unquote playoff teams. And I know the Jags aren't a bad team. So, it's not like they're beating up on nobody, but we saw what they did against teams that they were favored and they were supposed to win to. They won those games. So I don't see any reason why, the Dolphins don't come out and put up 20 first half points. I don't see any reason why, they don't win this game 35 to 27. I think that's the type of game that this is going to be.
I sign off on what you just said. I like the Dolphins team total. I actually haven't bet it yet. I have no idea why, but I like it. I'm in with what you said.
You can still find 26.5 out there. There's some 27.5, so it depends on your juice, but 26.5 for this Miami offense against a Jacksonville defense. I mean, that's
either one of those are bets for me. So I'm in on that. All right, New England at Cincinnati. Cincinnati minus 8.5 now. It was 9.5, so it's come down a bit, and a total of 41.
So this is an interesting game because, early on, a lot of sharps were on New England. Cincinnati's had different contract things and whatever on their end. We'll see. They've been traditionally a slow starting team. But I'm just telling you, I can't bet on this Patriots team. I just can't. Now, that being said, I think the play here for me is teasing the Cincinnati Bengals down to 2.5. I don't see them losing this game. I mean, I just think that the talent discrepancy is so different between these two teams that even if the Bengals come out slow, even if New England's defense is decent, I just think the Bengals are going to find a way to win. So if you can tease this at 8.5 and get it under that field goal, I think that's the play here. I think you do that and you pair it up with something you like, whether that's Green Bay plus 2.5 or something else. But I like the Bengals in a tease here. I think they find a way to get it done. If you told me I had to bet the spread, I would take the Bengals, even though I know a lot of quote unquote sharp money came in on New England early. I just don't see it. I just don't see it.
Yep. I love that call on teasing them. I've done some money line parlays with the Bengals in it just because, look, there's never free money, right? Stuff can happen. I know that, but this feels, pretty close. And I think it was minus 400, which is a lot on the money line, but that's what I did with it. Was a couple other things I liked. I just added them to that. The only thing I thought here is I think if you like the Pats and the points, I think you correlate it with the under because the Patriots aren't going to score much. So if they keep it within the spread, I think this game goes under is the only other thing I'd say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So, all right, big one, Yanni. Arizona at Buffalo. It's out to Buffalo minus 6.5 now. Came down to 6. Over under 48. How many touchdowns are the Bills going to win by?
Oh, at least 4.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because I think I'm with the consensus, and that is, I think, I heard some kind of contrarian plays where it was like, well, a lot of people are on Arizona, but I think the Bills are going to win this game handily. I don't think so. I think that this is going to be a close game. Now, I don't know who wins. Obviously, I hope the Bills win, but I don't think this is a game they win by 2 touchdowns if they win. I think if they win, it's going to be close. So I think the points are the play here. And really, to me, what it comes down to is I think this Arizona Cardinals offense could be pretty good. Their offensive line is much better than it was 2 years ago. I think they can run the ball. Obviously, we'll see how Marvin Harrison Jr. can do, but we know they've got tight end play. And Kyler Murray gives them, certainly a weapon that most teams don't have. So, the question is going to be, can Arizona stop the Bills on offense? Well, I don't know. We'll see how good the Bills offense is. It's a little bit of a different looking unit for them as well. So to me, I think that's just too many points. And I understand why the spread is where it is. I think that's where Vegas had to put it. But to me, it's like, that's a lot of points. If you told me I had to bet it, I would take the points.
Well, I bet the Bills and laid the points. I mean, I got minus 6, but I'm on the other side of this one. This is one where I think the Cardinals are too hyped. They are much better. I think the offense is good, but I think the defense is still not going to be good.
Right.
And away from home against a good team, even though losing Matt Milano, honestly, I'm not really high on the Bills for this season. We've talked about that. But I still think these teams are in a different league for this year. So I like the Bills to win by a touchdown or even a little bit more. So I took the points there. Or no, I laid the points. Yes, I said that wrong. All right, let's see. We got Carolina at New Orleans and one of the stinkers of the week. If you want to watch a boring game, I think you found your contender here. New Orleans is -4, over under 41.5.
I'll just be quick on this one. Again, not a great game. If you asked me what to bet here, I would say I have no idea. But if you said you have to bet something, I would take the points with Carolina. I just feel like if Carolina is going to be in games, which they will be in some games this year, this is one of them, right? Like, I mean, do we really think the Saints are going to come out and just put a curb stomping on anybody? I mean, maybe they will, but I don't see that happening. I think the Panthers will be improved. Now, that doesn't mean I think they're going to be a good team, but I do think they're going to be better than last year. And they actually ended up playing in, when you go back and look, they played in several one-score games last year. So it's not like, they lost, obviously, but it's not like they were just getting throttled by 30 points every week. I mean, they were at least contending. If Dave Canales can kind of do anything with Bryce Young there, with some of the added weapons they have, I think this is a division game that'll stay close. So if you ask me, I'm taking the points here, and probably this is one that maybe the Saints win by a field goal, maybe the Panthers win by a field goal.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I did bet the under here. I don't like either of these teams to be able to score a lot. I think if the Saints have a strength, it's their defense. But I do think the Panthers will be better this year, so I would take the points there as well. If I was going to bet that, which I probably won't. This, I will say, that could be another potential. If I wanted to do a teaser, the Panthers up could be an okay leg there. You get them up to 10.
Double digits,
that feels pretty strong to me. Broncos at the Seahawks. I scribbled out what the line is here, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's right now. It is
5? Oh, 6. I think I wrote down 6.
Yes, right now it's still at. They have it up here. Oh, there it is. 6. Yeah,
6. Okay. Yep. So Seahawks -6, over under 42. Bo Nick's gonna go start an epic run this season here.
Man, he may. We'll see. I think that's going to happen? No, but he sure did look good, in his limited play. Now, a lot different than playing a regular season game. We'll see how it goes. This is a tough spot, though, I think, for the Broncos. You're going into a hostile environment against a good secondary. And I think overall, I still think this Broncos team is kind of undermanned. I mean, they've got a handful of players on that roster, but it's not one of the better rosters in the league. I think that this line is probably right where it should be, so I don't have a whole lot of feel here. And I also don't have any interest in betting on or against Bo Nix until we see what he can do in the regular season. So for me, this is kind of one of those, let's evaluate and see how these teams do.
Yep. I feel kind of the same. I will say, I know that it's preseason, and I know, the Broncos were playing their starters, other teams weren't, but I thought Bo Nix looked very competent.
He looked good. He looked very good
preseason. And so I'd be more hopeful as a Broncos fan than I expected that they should be.
Same.
But I definitely agree that this is going into a difficult spot. If anything here, I might be a little bit interested in the over, because I think the Seahawks can score. And if the Broncos can hold up their end of the bargain, the total's only at 42. That's not too bad. But in terms of the side, man, I guess I'd lean toward the Seahawks, but I don't feel strongly either way here.
Yeah. I will say I did bet Kenneth Walker rushing yards over. I think that this is the type of game. And Denver was better against the run last year than the previous couple seasons, but they weren't great. They were better. And, I think that a big part of that left when Josie Jewell left there. I think this is the game where they feed Kenneth Walker hardcore in this game. And, they really try to get that running game going. It's at 60. Well, I think you can get 62.5, somewhere around there. To me, this is one of those games where Walker, one of his better performances of the season, early in the year, fresh legs, home game that they should be winning unless Bo Nix comes in and lights it up. So I like his rushing total over in this game.
And one of the things you love with Kenneth Walker is if he gets a hole a couple times in the game, he's going to bust a couple big ones.
He can take some long. Yep, for sure.
Yep. So that's always nice when you're needing to go over.
Yep.
I think I'm going to think about that one. I like that call, Yanni, quite a bit. All right, Washington at Tampa Bay. This game's at 3.5. Tampa Bay -3.5, and an over under of 43.5. Tampa Bay obviously ended up having a good season last year. Washington gets Jaden Daniels coming in, a new coaching staff. What do you think happens here?
No clue. I will completely punt. I mean, I looked at this game and I could not find any reasonable angle. I mean, I think that the Bucks could have some success throwing the football in this game. I don't think they'll run it well. But I don't know. And again, kind of Jaden Daniels, same scenario as Bo Nix. Like, let's see. I mean, he shows flashes, but we got to see it in a game. So let's see what this team in Washington can do. With the number being over the 3, it's a pass for me. I really have nothing to add for this one.
Okay. I was just looking up. I'm curious what Jaden Daniels' rushing prop is. 38.5. So it's pretty high.
Yep.
Similar to what you said about Caleb Williams, I can definitely see Jaden Daniels, tucking the ball and running here when he gets into trouble. So even at that high number, I don't know that I hate it because I think he's going to end up running the ball quite a bit. I do like the under here. I haven't bet it yet, but I think I might. I don't think either of these offenses are going to be great. Now, granted, I don't think the defenses are phenomenal either.
Right.
But I think this could be another sloppy game. If anything, I would take the points here. I'm just low on the Bucks this year. I think Baker comes back to earth. They're getting older. They lost some pieces on defense. I think this is like a 6-ish win team to me this year. So with the points, but I'm not going to bet it. Just saying that's the side that I would lean to at 3.5 if I was going to take anything there. But I'm interested in that Jaden Daniels rushing total. I think he runs the ball quite a bit in this game.
Okay.
Dallas at Cleveland. This should be a fun game. Cleveland's -2.5, and the total is 40.5. Expecting some defense in this one.
Yeah, so this is a little tough one for me. So initially, I think that first of all, I'll say this: I think Cleveland is the side here. But I hate Deshaun Watson, and not the person. I think a lot of people hate him, the person. I hate the quarterback, Deshaun Watson. Maybe he'll put it together and be decent again this year. That's the only thing holding me back here. I'll be honest. If Joe Flacco was playing quarterback in this game, I would load up on the Browns here.
Yep.
I think let's look at this. We have two teams that were polar opposite in the sense that Dallas was great at home, horrible on the road. Cleveland was great at home, horrible on the road. So if we see that pattern, we've got the home team, Cleveland, the road team, Dallas. To me, it all lines up to Cleveland. But I look at this, I think Cleveland, this is a game where CeeDee Lamb could be held in check to where it's not, a 9-catch, 130-yard game. If he's held in check, where does Dallas get offense in this game? I don't think they're going to be able to run. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball all year, really, but I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball in this game. I think Dak could be under pressure here. So, and this isn't the type of game where CD, I think, can put him on his back and get 12 catches for 190 yards. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. So I think Cleveland's the play here. Again, the only thing holding me back from really going in on this game is Deshaun Watson. But to me, this is Cleveland.
Yeah, man, I think it's Cleveland too, but I won't bet it because of Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
What I will say is this number is low, 40.5, because we know that the Cowboys offense can be prolific. Mm-hmm. And the Browns have good weapons. But man, I kind of like the under still. For what you said, the Browns defense was so good at home, and I don't believe in Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
So I just think maybe this ends up being a bit of a grind and a lot of punting. I think what you just said about CeeDee Lamb's receiving prop is 80.5 yards against this defense. I think that's kind of high. I think you could look at him under. You could look maybe at Dak's passing yards under too.
Yeah, I think Dak would be the better underplay here just because, I feel like they're going to force the ball to CD here. And a bad game for him could be 85 yards, right? We're like, CD only had 85 yards. I think the Dak under would be the better play here if you were asking me. But you're right. I think this is the type of game where Lamb is going to, I don't want to say struggle. I think he's too good to struggle, but not be, a 100-yard type day for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I just could be interested in some unders here. Obviously the books are on it with this being at 40.5, but also the lines move that way. It was 42 and now it's 40.5. So that's the way people are seeing it that are moving the line.
Yep.
All right. Last game we've got is the Sunday night game. Another fun one here. The Rams come to Detroit. Detroit's -3.5. And this is one of the highest totals of the week at 50.5, understandably playing on some turf with two good offenses. How do you see this rematch going down?
You can consider the over here. And again, when a number gets that high, it's that high for a reason. And even though it is week one, that Lions offense is prolific. I don't think the Rams defense is great. And then flip it over there. I mean, I think McVay is going to have this team ready. I think Stafford with weapons can make things happen. So I think the over's in play. If you ask me, I mean, something's telling me the Lions get this done, but I would bet the Rams. I would take the points here. I think obviously you're under the key number. You got Stafford going back there. I just don't see him getting blown out, even though that gut feeling is like, I think the Lions got this. I think I would have to take the points. Now, I'm not going to take the points there. Don't know if I'll get in on the total here. Should be a very fun game to watch for sure, but it's tough to find much of an edge looking at that point spread or the total.
Yeah, I agree with you. These lines make sense to me, is what I would say. What I was going to look up, and I'm not sure if you know this, the two props that I could be interested in are Jared Goff over passing yards, just the splits with him playing at home and on the road. He's so prolific at home. And so I could be interested in that, though I haven't looked up the number. So
it's high. Yeah. I want to say it was 280 or 268, maybe. So not crazy high, but yeah.
No, but it's kind of high. Yeah. The other one that I was going to look up is David Montgomery's rushing yards, depending on how it compares to Jahmyr Gibbs. 53.5. They're both 53. Oh, man. I like David Montgomery at 53.5. There's all this hype on Jahmyr Gibbs, and yes, he'll be good. But I think until David Montgomery falls off, he is a Dan Campbell kind of back, man. And I think they're just going to keep feeding him the ball. And I think without Aaron Donald there, they're going to be able to run the ball some. So maybe that even goes against my Jared Goff take. But I like that Montgomery one more.
I think you can bet both running backs and over, and I mean, it's not out of the realm of question for that because they're both going to get their opportunities. Montgomery, to your point, will probably get more carries than Gibbs. Now, Gibbs obviously more explosive. The prop that hit all over last year was Gibbs over whatever his longest rush was. So, for a while it was 13.5, whatever. And he basically hit that every single game. So, that's always in play as well with those guys. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think Montgomery is definitely in play here as well.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs long rush is 14.5 on DraftKings right now.
So that's to me still very playable in a game like this on the turf against a team that probably won't have a great run defense.
Yeah. Man, with that line, the thing I love about David Montgomery is most of the time he's going to get you between 4 and 8 yards.
Yeah.
Like Jahmyr Gibbs sometimes is going to get tackled behind the line of scrimmage or get 1 yard. It just feels like David Montgomery, you're pushing it up every time he touches the ball.
I mean, as long as he gets his carries, he'll get there because he, like you said, he's going to average just 4.5 yards and whatever.
Yep. Hey, I didn't tell you we were going to do this, but last thing before we call it quits, and I know this is long, but it's fun. So let's try to do a quick 3-team parlay or 3-team teaser for this week, because I think there were some nice legs that we talked about. I think Cincinnati is almost a given. We get them down to -2.5. And with 3 teams, you could even do a 7-point. If that, we'll see how the other legs play in. Glancing back over the games, Yanni, are there other lines you'd be interested in here?
I mean, to me, from a number standpoint, Green Bay, obviously, is a team you can look at getting them to 8.5. I know sounds like you're probably a little higher on the Eagles than Green Bay there, but I think the numbers right there. I don't think Philly's going to blow them out. Mm-hmm. So, I think you could look at that. And then, I think, as I'm looking here,
I like Las Vegas up to 9 or 10.
I was going to say the Raiders to 9.5, whatever number you're getting there. I mean, that's pretty appealing because, I mean, do we really think this Chargers team is going to blow them out? I don't.
Right. I don't either. Yep. All right. I like that one. So Vegas. Oh, yeah. And you like Green Bay. I think the only other one that I would say, and maybe Green Bay is better. I actually agree with you that should be a close game. So I don't dislike that as a teaser leg at all. The other one for me would be Carolina, because you get it up over 10 in a game that to me is probably low scoring.
Sure.
That's the only other one I would consider. So,
yeah, I mean, and I think you're right on that. I mean, probably a low scoring game, division game, probably close. Yep.
All right. We're going to go 7-point, because then we get Vegas up to 10.
Okay.
So Cincy -1.5. What's Green Bay's line right now?
2.5.
2.5. So we get it to 9.5. Yeah, let's do it. I like Green Bay plus 9.5. I think that should be a close game. All right. I'm going to actually bet that too. I just decided now that I'm going to bet a 3-leg teaser every week that we come up with. So
Let's do it.
I'll go see what I can get and I'll put it out there at Big Tasty Sports. All right, Yanni, good stuff. Best of luck here in week 1. Hopefully we'll come back being able to tout a couple wins here in week 1.
Here's to a fast start. Cross those fingers. Appreciate you having me, man. Good luck to you. Good luck to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.